And being a public meeting, I should, on behalf of the panel, recognise the traditional custodians of the land, the Ku-ring-gai people, on whose land we meet. A couple of announcements. I should advise that anyone who is speaking will have their voice and name recorded, and you should, when speaking, be respectful of others, because the council is not responsible for any defamatory remarks. You are. The next item is apologies. There are none. It is usual for the panel members to introduce ourselves, and we will do that now. I'm David Lloyd. I chair the meeting. I'm a lawyer. I'm a KC. I'm a former judge of the Land and Environment Court, former acting judge of the Supreme Court, and until the end of last year, a professor of law at Western Sydney University. Mr. Martin. Mr. Martin? Where's Mr. Martin?
Mr. Martin's not online. He declared an interest.
Okay. Then Mr. O'Grady, would you like to introduce?
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you, Chair. My name is John O'Grady. I'm a planner and a landscape architect. I'm in private practice as a sole practitioner.
And Mr. Sarich.
Yes, I'm Eugene Sarich. I'm the community member on this panel and also a local resident. I'm a town planner with 40 plus years experience, and I sit on 3 other planning panels.
Thank you. Next item is declarations of interest, and I've had no declarations from either panel members or staff.
No, sorry to interrupt, Chair. And Andrew Martin has declared.
There is a declaration of interest from Andrew Martin, a panel member who will absent himself from the determination of item number 3, having a conflict of interest there. All right, so we now will proceed with the 2 items on the public agenda. The first of which is the proposed dwelling house at 1A Coiler Street, Turramurra. I should remind those who are going to speak that the protocol that governs these meetings allows members of the public to speak and address the panel for up to 3 minutes. At the end of 3 minutes, a warning sound will be heard and you will then have to stop. So, number 1A Coiler Street, Turramurra is a proposed new 2-storey dwelling house. We have 2 speakers on this matter. The first is Mr. Thrum. Is Mr. Thrum available? Just pause for a moment while we find.
Come on board. Just.
Nothing from Mr. Thrum?
No, he's come. He's just logging in now. Sorry, I've had a few late logins.
Mr. Thrum is now there, Mr. Chair.
Oh, all right. Mr. Thrum is not here.
No, he is. He is online.
Joined us.
Just joined us now.
Hello.
Mr. Thrum.
Yes.
You are a speaker in relation to the proposed development at 1A Coiler Street, Turramurra.
That's correct.
All right. You have 3 minutes starting now.
Thank you. So thank you, panel, for your time this afternoon. I'm representing the residents of both 2 and 4 Wolston Avenue, the latter being my own residence. And I wish to highlight 2 critical issues regarding the determination of this DA. The first one's procedural and the second one is related to planning merit. So the first issue is that we were not notified of the amended plans or the second exhibition period. So neither the residents of 2 Wolston nor 4 Wolston received the required notification letter. I've raised this issue with the assessing officer in the last week, who deferred the matter for your consideration. This oversight, whether it be administrative or postal, means that the requirements of Appendix 1 of the Ku-ring-gai Community Participation Plan have not been met. So despite submitting feedback in the first exhibition window, we received no updates, and the zero submissions recorded in the second window suggest that the re-exhibition failed to reach the intended audience. A similar issue occurred recently in North Sydney with an SSDA, leading to that one being re-notified to ensure proper process. So in my view, it's inappropriate for this DA to be determined without giving us the chance to comment on the amended plans. Turning now to planning merit. It's acknowledged that this is an atypical site, and as a practicing planner, I appreciate the difficulties in accommodating standard controls on non-standard sites. And these are eventualities that I explored in my submission. In this case, there is a unique opportunity to vary the front setback control while maintaining the relevant objectives and protecting the amenity of the neighbouring properties. The street frontage is confined to a small portion of the lot, with much of the boundary having the character more akin to a side boundary. The assessment report acknowledges this as well, noting the site doesn't sit within a row of buildings with consistent setbacks. Additionally, the lot's location relative to Coiler Street affords an approximately 7-metre additional landscape setback from where the road actually finishes, which would further reduce any potential impact on the streetscape. In fact, on page 8 of the assessment report, councils relied on this line of argument to justify the bulk and scale of the design. My submission demonstrated that relocating the proposed dwelling to the northwest would result in a significantly better outcome without major design changes and requiring only a variation to the front setback, retaining the rear and side setbacks as compliant. I would suggest that neighbourhood amenity in this case should outweigh the negligible visual impact on a cul-de-sac streetscape in this instance. This simple design adjustment would greatly improve the amenity impacts for neighbouring properties, including number 2 and number 4 Wolston. In conclusion, we do not oppose the proposal in principle, but we object to the execution, which fails to address the amenity impacts on 2 and 4 Wolston Avenue. Therefore, the DA should be revised or refused, and at the very least, re-notified to neighbouring residents. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you for that. Any questions, panel? Any questions by the panel? None? No. All right. Thank you, Mr. Thrum. You just fitted in within the 3 minutes. Now, Mr. Gary Riley, please. Is Mr. Riley?
Yes.
Where are you? I don't see you.
He's
All right, you have 3 minutes.
Under a different name, but he's here.
So you can hear me okay?
Yes?
Okay. So Gary Rye is my name. I'm Managing Director of Meadowbank Homes, which is the nominated builder for this development. Our town planner, Andrew Minto, can't be here today as he's tied up in the Land and Environment Court. Mr. Minto advises we have reviewed, the council reviewed the assessment report. We believe that the issues raised by the objectors have been appropriately addressed in that report. The report provides a comprehensive assessment to the proposal. We're accepting of the nominated conditions of the consent, and we look forward to a favourable consideration of the matter today. I'm available to answer any technical questions, but not town planning questions. Thank you.
All right, any questions by the panel? No?
No.
No, not from me. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. Thank you to Mr. Thrum and Mr. Riley. What will happen is we will consider what's been put to us and publish our decision in due course. And thank you for your attendance. And with that, we can now move on to the second item on the public agenda. This is the proposed modifications to an approved development of a grandstand and associated facilities at North Turramurra. We have a number of speakers here who wish to address the panel, and I'll call each of you in turn. In saying that, I should say that having read the written submissions, it seems that many of the written submissions go to the original development consent. We are not concerned with the original development consent. We are only concerned with the proposed modifications, which are all internal, apart from the change to the cladding. that's what we are here to consider. All right, so the first person I will call will be Fiona Schuller.
Hi,
Thank
can everyone hear me clearly?
Yes, 3 minutes
Yes.
starting now.
Okay, so this the reason I wanted to speak today was because of the concern that this proposed application and amendment further restricts community access to a ratepayer funded community facility. NTRA was funded by a 3.15% surcharge on ratepayers for 6 years for a community facility. At the time, the council promised to incorporate a park with a children's playground, barbecue facilities, in addition to walking tracks and adjacent bushland, the enjoyment of the wider community. Despite the levy being collected from all ratepayers for 6 years, these facilities have not been delivered. Instead, now, Council is looking at an application to build facilities at NTRA for a semi-professional sporting association. These facilities will not be freely accessible to the community and will benefit very few of those ratepayers who funded the NTRA facility. Since the last development approval, a heads of agreement has been granted to NSFA. Even though this covers a community-funded facility, astoundingly, the terms of this agreement have been kept secret and have not been made public. However, it appears the agreement gives NSFA exclusive rights to NTRA at little to no cost, further locking the community out of NTRA. And despite what NSFA may claim, NTRA is not shared fairly with the community. The prime time for the use of the all-weather field is for training in the evenings in winter. Northern Tigers have exclusive access to the community over this prime time. Community clubs and other groups are only given access at the times when it's not needed by Northern Tigers. The modified application by NTRA is not for community facilities. Instead, it's for facilities, offices, change rooms, media rooms, cafes to support the semi-professional Northern Tigers. This new application now also includes gates, which I would understand would be used to lock out the public from this facility. NTRA needs to be kept as a community facility as intended, and this application further restricts community access to NTRA. If this application is approved, will Council refund ratepayers the levy for a community facility that the community no longer has access to and thus is no longer a community facility? Secondly, this application has no accommodation for visitors. In NSFA's own funding application, they estimated an increase of 300% in visitors, from 1,500 in 2021 to nearly 4,500 as a result of the development. Currently, there are only 190 parking spots for the soccer fields. They are already inadequate, with cars regularly parking illegally on the gardens, across people's driveways and blocking neighbouring streets. This application cannot be approved without a condition of consent to provide additional parking to accommodate NSFA's recently increased estimated number in visitors. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any questions, panel?
No,
Mr. O'Grady or Mr. Sarich?
no,
No
thank you, I'm good.
questions?
No questions, thank you.
All right, thank you for that. The next speaker on my list is Claire Kearns. Claire Kearns, is it?
I'll be speaking on behalf of Claire.
All right, please proceed.
Good morning, panel. My name is Sally, and I'm here to speak about the proposed modification to gate the grandstand facility at the NTRA, which I believe fundamentally undermines the principle of community, inclusivity, and fair use of public spaces. The current open nature of the ground and its facilities allows everyone, regardless of background, income, or status, to participate and feel welcome. As a young person enduring the cost of living crisis, I am grateful for this accessible space. Gating the grandstand, however, sends the exact opposite message. It creates an unnecessary physical and symbolic barrier that restricts access and monopolises a public space meant for the entire community. This isn't just about putting up a fence. It is about dividing the community, limiting participation, and restricting the free flow of enthusiasm that grassroots sports foster. It not only excludes people from enjoying a public facility, but also creates an environment where access becomes restricted to those who can afford participation in professional sport or those deemed eligible. Those who benefit will be a select few, while underprivileged families, young people, and everyday members of the community are left out. Public spaces should remain public, not monetized, monopolized, or privatized. This creates an unnecessary division and tension by reinforcing unequal opportunities as an entitled Upper North Shore privilege, eroding community spirit we all value on a principle of fairness. Moreover, we must remember the original promise you made to the community. The initial plan of management for the NTRA, as Fiona previously mentioned, included a range of community facilities, picnic areas, barbecue spaces, 4 netball courts, and walking tracks. This promised design is what I and all community members paid for in our rates and levies of over 7 years. And yet it is now being retracted and manipulated to create a divisive space that commercializes inequality and marginalization. In closing, I argue that gating the grandstand is not in the best interest of the people you represent. I urge the panel to reconsider this proposal and prioritise keeping our public spaces open and accessible to all. Thank you.
Right, any questions, panel? Ms. O'Grady, no questions, and Mr. Sarich, no questions?
No questions.
All right, thank you for that. Next speaker on my list is Wad McCash. Up there?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, panel. Thank you for your time today. My name is Wad McCassa and I've been a resident in North Tarramara for more than 20 years. I've noticed a huge increase in traffic along Bobbin Head Road since 2022. The intense traffic we have received on the single road access into the area has been noted by all residents. Bumper to bumper traffic from Burns Road to the service station, almost 1.5 kilometres. The traffic report submitted by Varga, and please bear with me a little bit here, by Varga Planning on the 12th of July 2021 states there'll be no further intensification to the existing use of the site. This is extremely and most concerning to residents in the fact that the traffic report is in complete and utter contradiction to the applicant's submission to the state government's funding applications. In these documents, declarations were made by the author stating the information submitted to the state government was to the best of their knowledge true and correct. These applications state that the 78,000 people were currently using the site and that if the development was approved, it would increase by almost 32,000 people per year. They then go on to a second application on 31st of August 2022, 11 months after the first one. In this one, staggering 171,000 people will frequent the site from the 78,000 11 months earlier. They then state beyond that, another nearly 54,000 people will frequent the site if the development is approved. There is absolutely no question this development is going to create intensity to the area. This was not tabled to the original DA nor to the previous KLPP prior to you. The applicant will argue that this information that they've now stated to the state government is other users like schools, sporting groups, or community use. It is irrelevant. It is irrelevant because it should have been included in that original DA as part of their application. I therefore urge the panel to consider and include a revised independent traffic report commissioned by council and a survey taken during peak period of the use of the site and part of this S455 modification. I think this is a fair and reasonable request to ensure the safety of the community who will be dealing with this for decades to come. I thank your time, panel.
All right, thank you for that. Any questions, panel? Mr.
No
O'Grady or
questions.
Mr. Sarich?
No.
No. All right, thank you
Happy
very
to
much.
take further questions later too, panel, if you're happy to ask me any. I'm happy to field any questions you have.
All right, no questions, then I'll move on to the next presenter, Christine Drake. I can see your face, Christine Drake, but not your voice. You have to unmute. You have to unmute.
Oh, sorry.
Now I can hear you. You have the floor.
Thank you. As president of NTAG, representing around 3,000 residents of North Tarramara whose petitions opposing this development were presented to Council in September 2022, I want to draw your attention to the following facts. North Turramurra is a peninsula surrounded by densely wooded bushland on 3 sides with only a single lane exit road. It has a population of 4,200, with council records showing that 1,591, that's 35% of our population, are considered geriatric, that is over the age of 70. Police advised at an NTAG meeting that it takes an hour and a half to evacuate an aged care facility. There are 12 of these within 500 metres and including the NTRA site. Historical evidence shows us that a fire in the early 90s travelled from Brooklyn to the National Park gates in less than 45 minutes. There's never been an orderly evacuation. It's always total chaos. Around 2,500 people reside between Glengarry Road and the park gates. And this 500-metre stretch also contains the 12 aged care facilities, including a dementia facility, a hospital, a high school with 700 students, and emergency ambulances travel up there daily, taking critically ill people to hospital. In its multi-funds facility sports grant application, the developer states that it will bring 4,326 visitors to the site every week, as summer soccer is now going from September to February every year. That's double our population. But the most critical fact of all is that there is no bushfire evacuation plan for North Turramurra. The developer plans to bring 225,000 visitors to the site, and it will severely compromise the evacuation risk of this area. With only 270 car spaces, the lack of parking means that approximately 800 to 1,000 vehicles will be parked along Bobbinhead Road, further impacting and compromising any evacuation. The RFS DA condition of consent states that a bushfire evacuation plan must be submitted. 2 years later, it still hasn't been done. Further, a recommendation from the Royal Commission into Bushfire and reiterated in Section 90 of the State Planning for Fire Risk Areas states, and I quote, the development should consider the public interest. And in Council's own statement to the local Shires Council, this is another quote, approval should be restricted on land classified as high risk. This development exacerbates the risk from high to endangered. The development is not in the public interest. It is a commercial development for the sole and exclusive use of a single football club with no benefit from the community who paid for it. As it is not in the public interest, any approval should definitely include the 2 following consent conditions, which I don't believe are unreasonable. The first is that an additional car park be provided for 500 cars. And the second is a bushfire evacuation plan of the entire northern end of the peninsula from Bobbinhead Road, Bobbinhead Gates to the Glengarry Road. These are not unreasonable requests, and I urgently ask the panel to include them in their approval, which I know is planned. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Any questions, panel? Mr. O'Grady or Mr. Sarich? No questions? Right. And the next speaker is Scott Hay. Do we have Mr. Hay?
He is
There?
Yes,
we
yes,
see you
yes.
and we hear you.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, please proceed.
Thanks so much. I'm a resident of North Turramurra and have been so for the last 10 years. This DA and the modification should be dismissed. If resubmitted, it should require valid landowners' consent and via council resolution and be based on accurate assumptions, data and reports. The DA itself is more than $500,000 in value and as such required landowners' consent via a resolution of council. Instead, consent was provided by Andrew Watson, a council employee, on 30 September 2021. He did this without authority, without a council resolution and without informing the then mayor of his action. The proposed office itself is not ancillary to the function of the field or the stadium. A commercial premises cannot be established on the public recreation zone established by the NTRA. The developer presently administers its business from offices on the Pacific Highway in Pymble. It uses those offices to administer soccer activities for over 30 member clubs from North Sydney to Brooklyn, well beyond the local government area of Ku-ring-gai. It also runs its coaching business Accelerate from those offices. The DA in the modification provides new commercial premises for the developer, including an office waiting area, meeting room, open plan office to accommodate 12 persons, a kitchen, 2 separate office spaces, a boardroom and media rooms. This is clearly commercial use. The DA itself is inconsistent with the plan of management, which had the intent of the NTRA to incorporate recreation pursuits of the local community, including parks, children's playgrounds, barbecue areas, and new walking tracks. The stadium will be gated and locked. The community will not have access. It does not provide a recreation precinct, but rather a single-use soccer facility for the benefit of one club who organises to play semi-professional and professional sport in a very small, sleepy hamlet of Turramurra. Those who wish to use it will need to pay a fee to the developer. All of the documents used to support the DA and the modification are based on assumptions of no intensification of use. This is patently incorrect. In various applications to the Office of the Sport, the developer's own statistics confirm that in October 2021, the use was 78,000. If the stadium was built, it would go to 32,000. By August 2022, it's revised this figure in another application to the Office of Sport to 170,000 per annum visits, with an additional 52,000 should the stadium be built. That is 225,000 attendances per year. The developer's traffic report is invalid because it's 170,000 attendances out. This has ramifications for off-street parking, which is already catastrophic. Council issued parking fines at a single soccer event in January 2024 of over 30. The fire evacuation plan is out by 70,000 attendees, doesn't take into account the 12 nursing homes, the school, and the single-lane access along Bobbin Head Road. It even assumes that the mounds that are presently there will be equivalent to the proposed stadium, which has 300 seats and a standing capacity for 200. The site plan analysis and the usage profile are similarly based on no intensification, again, out by $170,000 attendees. The acoustic report assumes only usage.
That's your time, Mr. Hay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Next is David Stock, please.
Hi, thanks for the opportunity to speak. I'll be referencing the acoustic report and the modification, which references and relies extensively on the traffic report, which makes the paradoxical statement that whilst there be no intensification of usage, the NSFA also has a long-term vision to hold semi-professional and professional matches on an occasion. In other words, although the hours may not change, the nature of the fixtures and the attendances will. And the acoustic report then goes ahead in justifying its position in this modification by stating that everything's been fine in the past, so it'll be fine in the future. But within that same report in the modification, in section 5.2, it deals with community feedback and concerns. And those concerns suggest the noise levels have already been found to be offensive in the past. In other words, it has not been fine in the past, therefore one cannot assume it will be fine in the future. But instead of addressing those concerns that you'd expect a professional consultant to do, they're simply dismissed on the basis that there's no statutory obligation for the NSFA to address spectator noise, because there are no applicable guidelines for spectators at community sporting events. And one would hope that the council has got some concerns about that and its impact on residents and ratepayers. That same acoustic report makes the assumption that there'll be no more than 300 attendees in that stadium. The reference to zoning has already been made. The fact that unless items are specifically included in RE1 under items 2 or 3, they're prohibited under item 4. These offices are not ancillary to the development. Ancillary means they provide necessary support to primary activities or operation. That's the primary activities and operation of the development, not of the NSFA. And given that the NSFA is administering, its jurisdiction extends from the harbour to the Hawkesbury, it goes well beyond the LGA, and it's certainly not ancillary to the operations of the NTRA that these offices and other adjacent sort of facilities are situated there. They're operating them fine from where they are now in Pymble. Given that the council's criticised the TODs on the back of lack of consultation, poor planning, putting the cart before the horse, increasing density without first investing in infrastructure, surely it's not unreasonable to expect council to walk their talk and make sure adequate provision is made for infrastructure and appropriate safeguards are put in place for residents. All the documentation submitted by the applicant, apart from that supporting the development, speaks to growth. We've already heard about that. And whilst that's admirable and it's impressive, it's not reflected in the plan. So there should be conditions of consent, that an independent traffic report is conducted showing how infrastructure copes with peak usage, that acoustic measurements are actually taken rather than simply dismissing what's being asserted by residents. There should be a traffic and parking plan devised, and the applicant should be responsible for compliance, including mechanisms for enforcement. And finally, if the applicant and its consultants are so confident that nothing will change and that these numbers will not be exceeded, then they should be very comfortable with placing a cap at those stipulated levels. And this would go a long way to reassuring residents that this modification and the development are not just the thin edge of the wedge. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for that. Next speaker on my list is Mr. Stuart Broad. Mr. Broad, I can see you, but I can't hear you. You have to.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, good afternoon. Thanks for listening to me. Obviously, you've heard a number of concerns of residents, and I'll try to limit my comments specifically to the most recent DA. My family's lived on Bobbenhead Road for over 50 years. And in fact, we were there on the bushfire of 1990 that Chris Drake talked about. There are a number of concerns, and some of those flow over from the original DA. But the ones that are of particular concern are the traffic and parking issues. And I note that the most recent DA still refers to the Varga report, which was prepared in June 21, which was 3 years ago, although they have provided some data where they carried a 1-week survey in June 2022, some 2 years ago. That 1-week survey happened to have 2 days of a long weekend in it, so not a typical sort of day. I think the real concern that I see from the residents is on the gala days. And the Facebook page of the North Turramurra Support Group shows a number of cars parked on footpaths, and one of the earlier speakers referred to a number of fines that were levied. So obviously that's not of great benefit to the soccer players either. There was a recent gala day in November 23, which was the Theo Slater Cup, and that brought together 650 players from 29 schools across New South Wales. So obviously a very big day. I think in terms of actually seeing what's going on, there's actually another gala day this week, the Paul Davies Cup. And the website promotes there's over 40 schools, providing up to 4 teams of 13 players. So, I mean, if you multiply that out, a maximum potential couple of thousand players, but realistically, there's probably going to be 700 players or so coming along with cars and buses. And we would expect to see the streets parked out with cars. So certainly, I hope the soccer people are having a look and seeing what's happening to parking. I know the local residents certainly will be. So I guess my thing is I'd just like to see a proper parking analysis carried out, supporting the claims that there's no change to the requirements. So thank you to allow me to make my comments.
Any questions, panel? No?
No.
Two no's. All right, thank you. Next is Mr. Bill Trollope.
Bill is unavailable to join us today. Mr. Trollope is unavailable to join us today.
Oh, he's unavailable. All right, okay. Then Camille Hanrahan Tan, please.
Yes, I'm here. No, I'm here.
All right, your turn.
Hi. So I'm provided the acoustic report for the NSFA application. Essentially, we have addressed the noise emissions from the proposed site, which includes mechanical services, cafe patrons, and the PA system related to the grandstand. The fact is there is no assessment criteria for people using recreational areas and for sports grounds. So in terms of assessing this, that's as it is, and our assessment does cover the statutory criteria and the guidelines for noise related to the proposed use. We have as well addressed the concerns from the council directly, provided direct answers to those in relation to relevant criteria. and concerns. Just as in relation to audibility of noise, it doesn't necessarily equate to offensiveness. The use is proposed for daytime, which rules out the sleep disturbance criteria, which would otherwise be relevant to the site. And our report provides the required recommendations for the grandstand, which includes the PA system for loudspeakers, which won't be used during weeknights. It includes the requirements for cafe patrons seated in the area and for mechanical services, including treatment in the plant rooms and barriers. And additionally, it also provides some recommendations for internal treatments to assist with reducing noise levels from patrons in the grandstand area and internal areas. Essentially it covers all of the required criteria and assesses that accordingly. That's what we've provided in our updated revised report, which you'd all have, I believe, have access to.
Any questions, panel? No?
No.
All right, thank you. Next, Kevin Johnson, please. I see your name.
David Wiles.
I want to go to Kevin.
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you, panel.
Yes, Mr. Johnson.
Yes, hello. I'm talking for the proposal and would like to note that the amendments do not include any changes to the building footprint itself. We believe this is a fit-for-purpose facility. We're already, the NSFA is a not-for-profit organisation involving 30 clubs, as well as the Northern Tigers, which is a representative team that provides a pathway for local players. Very important part of our community that use that facility. The usage will not be changing from our point of view. We're already using the grounds at maximum capacity. We'll be using them for the same competitions. There will be increased access for the community to the site. So no access for the community to the site will be changing since the original DA. We're building this facility on an unused piece of council land, which is a hill where people currently watch the ground. So access to the broader site for walking and recreation will be maintained, which is pleasing for us. We've undertaken some significant community consultation to come up with the design changes. We had community forums on the 16th of March 2023, on the 15th of June 2023, and there's been a number of changes on the back of that have been incorporated into the proposal, improving accessibility, including for the elderly and disabled people, changing from 2 lifts to 1 lift. We've got some more sustainable materials, including the bucket seats and the materials for the ground. We've got a back to the stand, which helps to reduce noise levels. And there has been some reconfiguration with the room, but the new design is more aesthetically pleasing and in line with the natural environment, which was another piece of community feedback that we had. So just to reiterate, there's no change to the building footprint. The maximum height stays the same. There is more coverage from the weather, particularly rain, and there's a safety element to that as well. There's no change to the capacity and seating. The building footprint remains the same. The lighting, the car park capacity remains the same as well. Accessibility will for the public will remain. We're pleased to say we're not commenting on the traffic report, which is out of scope of this report, but we can say that the previous consultants advised that there'd be no change to that, based on these design amendment changes. We have presented a draft bushfire evacuation plan already to council, so we're already satisfying some of the DA elements from October 2022 already. We look forward to building a community facility which benefits football and other sports like cricket, and also the broader community who'll have increased utility to the building if they use the community room and the cafe, which we've said we're open to that happening when we're not using it in football. Once again, for the design changes, no changes to the building footprint, no changes to the usage of the ovals or the people using it during those times, only at off-peak times for the likes of school children and community users. We can see that increase. We're already.
That's your 3 minutes, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you.
Okay. Any questions, panel?
Yes, if I may.
Yes.
We heard an earlier speaker talking about the gates restricting access. Can you just inform me a little bit further about the gates?
Yeah, so there are gates in place, which I believe open quite early in the morning and close about 10 p.m. at night. They restrict car access to the car park, and that's been in place, for the last 6-7 years since the renovated site's been used and that the grounds have been available. My understanding is that there'll be no change to those gates or access. Community members will be able to use the grounds, the footpaths around the grounds at all hours that are permissible as per the current. So no change there.
Thank you for that.
Did I understand you to say, Mr. Johnson, that this ground is also available for use in the summer for the playing of cricket? Am I correct?
Yes, that is correct. There's also 3 cricket nets that are there, I believe. In the corner. Yeah, that's correct.
And would the cricketers have access to the facilities in the stand?
Absolutely. We've spoken to cricket already, both the Ku-ring-gai, Hornsby Ku-ring-gai Cricket Association, Junior Cricket Association, and the North Shore Junior Cricket Association, and we've offered them usage of the new facilities when they're available, and they're very interested in using those. So yeah, Council typically doesn't allow football to play on grass pitches in summer. Normally they're used by other sports like cricket. So yeah, they use the fields in the summer. I was up there on Saturday. There was a cricket game going on, and certainly they'd appreciate an increase in improvement in facilities, particularly female-friendly facilities at the NTRA. Yep.
I see. All right. Any questions arising out of that panel?
Yes, I've just got sort of one question, maybe clarification, Mr. Johnson. So I'm just trying to get my head around what the actual allowances are for public access to the new grandstand and the facilities generally. Are you able to just summarise that in a few sentences? So, for instance, if a local cricket team or a local football team wish to play on the site and use the grandstand, how would that be managed?
Sure. So access to the grounds and the car park, won't be changing. We are intending to take a long-term lease out on the building, so we will have access to that building. There are existing two change rooms and amenities facilities that are all also accessed by golfers at the moment. This will increase the number of change rooms for when all grounds are being used. So we will have access under the lease to those, and we've indicated that we're happy for other sports or hirers using the ground to use that as well. And that will be easier for us to monitor, given that our officers will be there and we'll be able to facilitate the usage from other sports and community members of this new building as appropriate. I hope that answers your question.
All right. Any other questions, panel? From the panel?
No further questions.
All right. Next, Deborah McKenzie, do you wish to respond to anything?
Good afternoon. I think Kevin has said very succinctly what the application is actually about. Just to reiterate, all of the speakers that I've heard today very much about the broader use and the whole use, and as the chairman mentioned, we are not revisiting the whole use. It's very much about what is actually part of this amendment. And I haven't heard anything today that I really feel that I need to address that hasn't been addressed very well by Kevin and Camille. So I'm available to answer any questions, I suppose, but just to say that just a little bit more on John O'Grady's question there. regarding other uses actually coming in. I believe that's set by a schedule, which is agreed with the council. So the number of fixtures and the scheduling is actually not changing either under this amendment. It is already set. As Kevin said, they have a maximised their scheduling already, and they're not seeking to change that scheduling. So if another sport is to come in, it'll come in as per council schedule for those sports throughout the whole year. So I'm open for any other questions.
Right. Any questions, panel, of Ms. Mackenzie? No? No, all right. Final speaker is David Wiles. We have Mr. Wiles.
Good afternoon.
Yes.
David Wiles here. I'm from RP Infrastructure. We're the project managers appointed by NSFA for the project. And I think the point I really wanted to make was that the modification that is on the table today is really limited to a number of issues that were born out of the detailed design for the project. And it included some upgrade works to some disability access compliance requirements, which we have resolved, and that's to comply with Australian standards that the previously approved DA didn't comply with. And so that is actually a compliance requirement we've done, and that is to improve the disability access. As part of that, we've gone from 2 lifts to 1 lift to make it a much simpler access to the building. There are some internal changes which are just purely driven by the efficiency of the building and aesthetically make no difference to the external of the building. And one thing we did look at, though, and which also came as a direction from the NSFA, was to look at the facade detailing and the acoustic rating of the western facade, with the intention to actually improve the acoustic rating of that facade and actually make it a more amenable design as well, which has been part of the DA. So I think the point is the assessment needs to be limited to the items that are in the section 4.55. One of the reasons, and I heard a lot of discussion around the traffic and the like, the items in the 4.55 have had zero impact on the traffic assessment, and there's no changes to what has been previously approved under the DA for this building, and therefore the traffic assessment is a non-issue in relation to the items under assessment in today's 4.55.
Any questions of Mr. Wiles by the panel?
Nothing from me.
Got one question, again, this isn't directly related to the mod, but I noticed in the submissions there was a number of comments about the lack of female change facilities. I understand this is not in the mod, but this is, I guess, an opportunity to just get your commentary on that. I'm wondering why there's no
I would
specific...
say on the contrary, at the moment at the grounds, there's really no female changing facilities, and in the proposal, which is actually already in the approved DA, there are female changing facilities. One of the, and Kevin may be better to respond to this than me, but one of the absolute incentives for NSFA has been female engagement and female footballers. They've had a massive uptake on that, as I'm aware of. But as I said, Kevin might be able to give you a better response than I can on that.
All right.
Any other? Am I right in saying that there are female change facilities in the DA?
Yes.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So that will conclude the public meeting. Thank you all for your input. As I said previously, we will consider what's been put to us and publish our decision in due course. And I thank you all for your attendance. And we will now close the public meeting while the panel retires to consider the matter along with the other matters on the agenda. Thank you very much.
Can I ask the chair if there's any opportunity for any further comment in regard to the answers given by the applicant?
Who is speaking?
Wad Macassar.
No, we're not here to debate the matter. We've heard your submissions. We've heard everyone else's submissions. We'll balance what's been put to us by the objectors against those put by the proponent, and carefully consider the issues that have been put to us.
Understood. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Total joke, isn't it? It's a total joke.
We are closing the public meeting.
He tried to put the answer back and he closed them down.